Welcome to TalentFRED Talk. I am Fred Scott, the author of the book TalentFRED, Unveiling Your Potential. And this is my podcast series where we're working on unveiling your path to success. And this series is designed to assist our audience with professional advice, guidance, and support towards their journey and pathways to success. Today, our focus is aligned with TalentFRED framework, which is leadership. And I have today in my podcast a wonderful guest joined by Dr. Joshua Coles. And I'll just give this one little tidbit at the end to keep y'all going, because you probably heard me say, who am I? Why does Fred use this name, TalentFRED? It's because of him. But with that all said, let's talk about who is he. I want to introduce Dr. Joshua Cole, who's a recipient of the Milliken Family Foundation and National Educator Award for Excellence in Education. His career includes experiences in pre-K through 12, higher ed, and nonprofit. Wow, he's been a busy man. He has served as a teacher in Detroit Public Schools, a principal in Chesterfield County Public Schools, and an executive director at Virginia Commonwealth University, and the director at Waterford.org, a national nonprofit literacy organization. Currently, he is the Director of Organizational Development and Special Assistant to the President for Strategic Initiatives at Reynolds Community College in Richmond, Virginia. Joshua is the founder of A New Angle, an educational resource to help educators live out their purpose by reaching their full potential. Love that, love that. He is the author of the book The Character Club. It's a children's book focused on social emotional learning strategies for teachers and for educators all, and especially students. His current book, his recent book that he just released, Clearing the Road, a Parable of Educational Leadership, which includes seven lessons from his grandfather to help other leaders become their best version of themselves. Joshua is married to his wife, Heather, and they have two wonderful sons, Silas and Levi. I am extremely excited about having him here today. So let's get started. Josh, you excited about being with me?
Yes, sir. I'm excited that you invited me. I appreciate it, man.
So he's told us a little bit about, we heard what his line of work is. He's had a multifarious career, but Josh is going to tell us a little bit about this book right here, Clearing the Road. So go ahead and tell us about a little bit about your book.
Well, thank you, Fred, again for having me. I really appreciate it. TalentFRED, that is. I still want those royalties off of that name. Um, yeah. So again, thanks for having me and a chance to talk about my book, Clearing Your Road. It's based on 7 leadership traits, lessons that I learned from my grandfather. Since my grandmother passed away 7 years ago, him and I have talked every Thursday almost at 5:45 a.m. and just stayed in contact. And he's in Michigan, where I'm from, and I'm down here in Virginia. And so it's been nice talking to him. But as we talk, right, these lessons come out from his 91-year-old wisdom. He was a mechanical foreman at a heavy equipment garage. And
Wow.
I started listening to all these stories that he would tell as a foreman, and they were leadership lessons. But my grandfather's words, one of them is the alarm clock goes off, your feet hit the floor. I never won an argument. Um, if you get the work done in the shop, you don't have to do it in the snowbank. Things like that. So after
Mm.
hearing these quibs of his, I said, you know what? These are leadership lessons. So I
Yeah.
transformed it into phrases and statements, and put it together in a narrative story that is told through the eyes of this fictitious principal traveling on a bus through a snowstorm. You can see this is the back cover behind me here, to get to an airport. That's the context.
Ah.
The bus driver in the story is my grandmother, and she's telling this fictitious principal lessons that to help them become better because they're struggling, like many leaders are today. And the lessons that she talks about are from her husband, my grandfather. Well, the story goes on through all these trials and tribulations, and this inner self-reflection occurs throughout the book, where hopefully the reader arrives at a place of ready for their own growth. And I share my own story. I have a Joshua's journey after every chapter that tells a bit about what I've actually gone through and people who have helped and influenced me. So I wrote it for leaders to become the best versions of themselves, like you said, and like you're all about, especially with your book and your work. So it's just exciting to have another voice out there to share this space to help others.
I'm glad you clarified about, because I was wondering about the back with the snow. He
Oh,
just
yeah,
told us why and made
yeah,
that connection. And you know what's great to hear when authors are able to put part of themselves and their story and journey, the reader really picks up and can resonate with them. And that's one of the things I thought about your book. It resonated about you telling the story and your journey and really capturing your grandfather and your grandmother, especially the lessons learned. And thank you for sharing that and those 7 lessons that's going to be inside of that. And I think this would be great for me to ask you that to
mhm,
tell our audience what would be important. In your lessons learned, one has to know themselves
yeah.
first. Yeah. And also, one has to, if they're going to lead others, there's going to be things they're going to learn about leadership traits. What could you say from your book about sharing your road that would be one of the 3 takeaways you would want to give to that reader?
Well, the concept that being a parable, you're right. I wrote this in a way that people can one self-reflect, and the whole entire self-reflection process is stories help with that. So the first thing I would love for leaders who read this to take away is what is it that their strengths and opportunities really are? What is it that's inside them that they maybe have identified, maybe they're doing well with, maybe they're fearful, worried, scared, all these different feelings that get in our way, to really identify what they are, what your talents are. I'm going to steal your word there. But secondly, to delve into what's blocking you from clearing your road. What's the barrier? What are the things that are keeping you from? As one of my lessons, I'll give a tidbit is called displaying a humble confidence. And that's hard because our ego gets in the way often. And so, however, we as individuals, as leaders, can look at who we are, our authentic selves, but look at how our ego sometimes gets in the way of us truly being who we're meant to be. That lesson I try to illustrate in a way that people can have their own self reflection. And thirdly, I would say the idea that you really should feel proud of yourself. This is hard work being a leader in any capacity. And to find whatever at the end of your path, at your destination, whatever that space is for you to really love yourself, to be proud of yourself, to continue to care for yourself. I know you talk a lot about self-care. Find that. It's not a template. I didn't say, hey, here are the exact things you're supposed to do. I more so in the book created there's graphic organizers for the reader to do self-reflections to get to the point where you need to be at because we each have a different purpose. We each have our potential that we need to meet. And if we can help others obtain that and succeed in that, well then sky's the limit.
Josh, we got a lot of things in common, don't we?
Yeah, man. Yes,
So
sir.
I'm going to say back, tell our audience one more time so they can hear it. We said what were the 3 takeaways because I think it would be great for those leaders who are in education or nonprofit or anything because you have walked that walk is knowing your strengths. And I call it discovering what your triumphs, those things, and getting that mindset. And you heard Joshua said to us uh, that those strengths is something you have to identify. And I don't use the word weaknesses, I call it as challenges. But
Yeah.
Josh said you have to identify it and you have to articulate that and put it in your graphic novel. That's a part of number 2, that's self reflection. Because is it blocking? Is it blocking you from moving forward? And in that blocking, displaying some humbleness. Because once you are able to be humble in leadership, you and I both know
Yeah.
when you're working with people, regardless of who they are, and we've been in different spaces, that humbleness, you're here to the number 1 word, serve.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
And
Couldn't
you
agree
have
more.
served in wonderful capacities and still is serving, and I'm most proud of you. But I want the reader to know when they pick up your book about clearing the road, you said first you got to clear and know what strengths so you can identify your talents. Then clear that road about the mindset and triumph so you can block those things away. And the last thing, be proud of who you are.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I'm proud of you every day. And
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
proud of
likewise.
everybody that we have served with.
Yeah.
Um, Notice that Josh said in his parable of educational leadership, I do want to share to our audience that you may not be in the education space, but you will be able to relate because it gives organizers for reflections. And Josh, I want to ask this question.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, well, education is different from business, it's different from this. And there are a lot of similarities. So, what have you discovered from the spaces that you've been in to help those other folks to become that understand their self leadership and also grow as a leader
Yeah. Well,
in
two
any
things.
space?
Yeah, two things there. First, there's so many books out there that are structured for the corporate world. I mean, we read them when we were principals, and people are still reading them today, and they're great books, fantastic. But I wanted to create a book that was based on and favored educators in a sense, right? Tailored to the educator need, but also could be applied vice versa to the
There you go.
corporate business world because we can all learn from each other. And what it boils down to is people.
There
And
you
at the
go.
heart of that, the relationships that we must and should and can. We had the opportunity to build. And because that's where, for me, I build a lot of my strengths from others. And, everybody has different, they're made up differently, but having positive relationships, you just can't go wrong with that. And, getting to know people, and sometimes it's hard in the workforce, but as a leader, understanding where people are coming from, that empathy piece, right? So many things stem from the people and the relationships, empathy and understanding and caring and compassion. But it starts with getting to know people. And that's a big part of what leaders' jobs are, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And guess what? To our audience, his 7 lessons are applicable. He wrote it because his background of education, but it's applicable to all. So if a company or organization, nonprofit, university, and they said he has a story to tell, but also he has a gift that he can pass along the way, Dr. Joshua Cole could do that.
I
And
appreciate that plug. Yeah.
one of the things that you and I both have always been on it about people.
Yeah.
And Josh has an innate piece. I remember when he became a teacher in Chesterfield County Public School, his heart, that's why he won that Millikan Award. It's always been about kids and learning and people, just people in general. And his passion for social and emotional learning goes a long way because in this space, and I want to go ahead and begin to wrap up. But this one question is people, the educators right now,
Yeah.
I hear it in the corporate world where I'm working through with the job I have, but the social emotional learning, not only for the children, but also for the leaders
Yeah.
would be important. And what would advice you would give them out there?
Well, great question, big question.
I know it
Social
is.
emotional learning in general, it starts with self-awareness. And so just going back to yourself and aware of what it is that you can bring to the table. And once I think we really do that, and again, going back to our strengths and opportunities, we can overcome the challenges much easier because the challenges will still be there. And I think that
Yeah.
awareness, not just of yourself, but the awareness that you are going to continue to face these challenges. And I'm a believer in this. The stronger you get and the more opportunities you have, the more challenges are going to come your way because you become accessible, you become stronger, and there's this um, you just set up for that success. You're meant to be, right? Being spiritually minded. I think there's a purpose in the work that we do, and that calling, if you will, is a blessing. And as I continue to do my work, and I encourage others to lean into that because there's a bit of uncomfortability there. But that's where the real growth comes. I mean, that's how
Yes,
we
it
get
is.
stronger. We must get stronger and then be an example for others to get stronger too. It's not all about us, it's about what we can demonstrate to others through our actions. So, that's what I'd say. This is the time and space for all of us to really do that, given all the circumstances that are in right now with the world of education.
Josh, I want you to go ahead again with your book to talk about those 7 points because we want the audience to really understand the why, and also for them to understand why they should get your book and what those seven things those seven takeaways from your lesson. So he's going to articulate that
All
again
right.
for you guys.
I'm thank you for that. I'm gonna start with what my grandfather's quib is, and then I'll give the
Okay.
lesson. First, alarm goes off, your feet hit the floor, which I interpret as being ready to work. When you read the book, you'll get the sense of that, right? Get up and go. Second, he talks about getting your own hands dirty. And that is
Ah,
building relationships with everyone, getting right in there with the work, making sure you're doing the work alongside people, not being so much the boss, right? And leadership is not management all the time. Next, if you always tell the truth, you do not have to remember what you said. I interpret that quote from my grandfather as working and
it's a
living
great
with
one.
integrity, right? Working and living with integrity. I think you speak about integrity in your work. Next, I've never won an argument from my grandfather, but I turned that into lesson four, which is displaying a humble confidence, which I mentioned. Next, for lesson five, he always would say, just keep going, even when it gets hard. And that's deciding to be bold. And that was essential to answer your one question, right? We need to be bold in what we do. Lesson six, from his point of view, the work will be there tomorrow. And what he means by that is we can't stress and get caught up in what we did and accomplish for today. It will be there tomorrow. And I frame that as making time for yourself and family. And I know you talk a lot about that and your balance of your leadership perspectives, Fred. And the last lesson from him, which I also referenced already, is what we do in the shop, we don't have to do in the snowbank because that's he worked
Oh,
with
I
the
love that.
right because because you're not planning. Like my lesson is planning ahead with trusting yourself and the process. The more work we can do in the shop on the trucks and the tires and the wheels and we don't have to. And when it breaks down out there in the snow, that's the hard part. So if
That's
we
the
can
hard
do
part.
that for ourselves, right? So again, these are his quibs. I turn into lessons and try to make applicable to anybody in leadership to just be the best version of themselves.
You guys, you hear why I say in this podcast, I'm going to bring people to unveil your best success and through strategies and more. Joshua's book is one of those tools that you should just go out there and get it to say, I got to buy it. I got to buy it because I want to read, because your grandfather had a lot to say, a lot to say. And the parables in there are just absolutely wonderful.
I'm
So
gonna share
he
one more
brought,
thing, man. I'm gonna share one
sure.
thing. First book he ever read. 91 years old. First book he ever read. You hear what I'm saying? First time
What
he read a full book.
was yours?
Yeah. Talk about impactful. So, I mean, yeah, if
Wow.
it changes whoever's life in whatever way, but I had to put that in there for
Oh,
my grandpa
wow.
Glenn. Yeah, yeah. And so
Grandpa Glenn has a lot to say. If you and to the audience, you got to pick it up because I was going through it going, that's so humble because our parents, well, my parents who were passed away and grandparents had these kind of parables and things that are nice lessons learned. And I want to go ahead and say this. I want to thank Dr. Joshua Cole for being our guest today and for providing the audience excellence, advice, professional guidance, and more. And also letting the audience know he has tools and he has a book that you could pick up from that you could use and read. And for our educators out there, you need to get it. All of you need to get it. And I want you guys, as audience out there, hit the button to subscribe, to follow Talent Fred, and also the framework of my book and his book is out there, and you can get it on Amazon and more. But you sparked a drive in my part of my framework, which is leadership. And thank you, Dr. Joshua Cole, for the opportunity today. Thanks for
thank you for
Talent Fred.
having me. Yeah.
And guess what? I will say this. This is the last part to make people laugh. How did Fred get the name of
Yeah.
Talent Fred? It's because of this man right here. He gave me that name. And thank you. Thank you. And I want to
It
say
fits. Yeah.
your passion, which I saw, which you did, was unmatched. And I'm going to give the audience this one piece. You probably don't remember. I was in his building as a principal, working with his staff on professional growth goals. And the teachers were one group of teachers weren't as sensitive about the diversity. which is now a hot topic now, and something about a particular student. And Joshua changed the narrative and changed the tenor of the room for them to look at all students, all opportunities, because they are, each person is a leader, and how they look at every child would be important in their professional growth. I remember that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I believe you.
You were so busy. He would always, I just wanted to say, I remember that because when you left the room with the student,
Okay.
they had a conversation with me and saying,
Okay.
Dr. Cole
Yeah.
really cares about the being and he's humble.
I
Now you
remember that
said
now.
it.
Yeah, I remember
He's
that. I know what you're talking about.
humble.
Yeah.
He's humble about his leadership. Guess
Uh,
what, you guys? That's why you should get his book. Thank you from Tyler Fred.